Guys, welcome back. I've got Casey Jenks with me today. He was kind enough to wear the OPEX shirt, but you guys probably know
Represent.
Casey. Yeah, exactly, man. We got to talk about kind of when you first started, because you're a lot longer with OPEX than maybe people remember, but you guys probably know
2012.
Casey. So I'm just jumping right in. We're just going to do this
Sure.
thing.
Yeah, let's roll.
Why did you even look at OPT back then? Like what was even interesting about it to you back then?
Yeah, so I was maybe a year and change from opening our CrossFit affiliate, maybe 3 years in or so, doing CrossFit, and dislocated my shoulder on a max snatch, had to go get 6 anchors put in, went through physical therapy. And when they cleared me from therapy, I was still at 50% strength, maybe. I was strict pressing like 95 for a set of 6. So still a long way to go. And I knew that jumping back into group classes would have just, set myself up for re-injury. Couldn't afford, hiring a personal trainer. I wasn't going to ask any of the coaches working for us for free. Happened to run into a guy named Mike McGoldrick, who a lot of people probably know, at a competition. It might have been Crush Games back in 2012. And he did really, really well. And him and one of my coaches that worked for us were kind of chatting a little bit. And that's kind of first where I heard of, working with an OPT coach. That's how, he was getting his training, his programs. And started doing some research, and I could tell that what James and the crew at that time had put together was just a lot smarter of an approach versus what a lot of others were doing. I think Outlaw was the popular kind of blog at the time as well. And it just seemed like a smarter, more sustainable, more well thought out approach. And jumped on board, and I guess the rest is history.
And for people who don't know, Casey was one of the two that started TrueCoach, which was Fitbot back in the day. Why did you want to do that in the beginning? So you owned a gym, and you did nicely with that, but why did you want to switch into this space?
Yeah, so my background was software. And that's what I was doing full time, even while running the gym. I was never, the idea was never to be full time for a really long period of time with the gym. So I was had a software background, and I loved everything about the training except for, for every hour or every minute I spent training, I felt like I was spending another minute either getting my results in my notes, and then getting the, if there was video that day, getting the videos uploaded, and then back in the results, and kind of curating everything and getting it, so my coach could digest it. Then you factor in the day-to-day communication, fill out all the forms and payments and everything that you had to do. It just felt like I just knew there was a better way. It had to exist.
I remember when I first started doing a version of remote coaching, it was an email, and then keeping track of all of that didn't exist. And then step 2 was an Excel spreadsheet. And then if you were really high end, you went to like a Google sheet, right?
Yeah.
And
maybe like with some Evernote thrown in
there.
there.
Oh God, just absolutely brutal. Okay, so you see the opening for a platform to do the coaching piece more effectively. In the beginning, why did you stick with one-to-one as opposed to trying to create a universal one-to-one and group platform?
I just felt like there were so many other group platforms out there, between Zen Planner and Wodify, and there's tons more, but beyond the whiteboard, I just felt like it was already being done. I also wasn't really a believer in the group approach after kind of switching to one-to-one. Also knew that getting started, I needed to be laser focused on one thing, and just doing group just didn't excite me. And I wanted to kind of pick something that I was excited about. I think that's important, kind of, whenever you're starting a new business or even taking on a new job, whatever you do in life, make sure you're excited about it, because it's going to be a long grind and long journey. So you got to be fired up along the way.
You have to settle, let's call it a bet. You got to settle a bet with Megan Sweet and I. She claims that that you spoke to her and you guys had the conversation to come in, because I remember it was very early in my tenure when you came in to basically pitch the idea of TrueCoach, Fitbot at the time, and we had tried some other platforms that were nonsense, and so we were a little bit skeptical of it. But do you remember, was it Megan that you had the first conversation with?
There's definitely a convo, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I was maybe 8-9 months into building this thing, and I would post some screenshots and videos on my personal Facebook page every once in a while. And she sent me a message one day, "Hey, I heard you're building like a remote coaching platform." So yeah, whatever it is that you owe her in that bet, I guess you owe it to her now.
Awesome. No, well, I don't even think I was betting against her, but
okay.
No, that's awesome. Okay, so you're 8 to 9 months in, you get connected with, we would have been OPEX at the time, I think, right?
Yep.
Okay,
yeah.
So OPEX at the time. I'd love to understand how you started to scale it and how Techstars came into play. Like, what is, and for people who don't know, Techstars is basically an accelerator program that takes really good businesses and says, we're going to help you emerge as the players in your industry. So how did that happen?
Yeah, so I guess, for the first, let's call it 6 months or so, is just pure building, talking with potential customers and coaches, and just building, a lot of late nights. They got the product to a small beta, maybe in June of 2015, and continue to get people through the door. Wasn't too many, but it was enough to, start getting feedback and continue to iterate on the product. And it was still just, 100% me. So could go really fast back then. Made the decision to flip the switch from beta to having to pay to get access to the product in, I think, September of 2015. And, people can tell you all kinds of great things about how awesome everything is when it's free. But when I flipped the switch, and I think there were 40 people in the beta, and every single one of them whipped out their credit card, decided to pay for the product. And that's when I knew, like, there was some traction. Like, all right, this is real traction. They've, paying me real money for access to this. And, that was an early signal of, there being some very, very early, let's call it, product market fit. Continued kind of, grinding along, and, my co-founder, Robbie, who, we've been best friends since, third or fourth grade. He was in Mountain View at the time, worked for a company called Boosted Boards, running their growth, and he saw what I was up to, and we started talking around then on, getting him in a full-time role to run growth. So he came on as co-founder January 2016, and he was more familiar with Techstars and some of the other accelerators out there. And I guess a good way to think of those is a 3-month boot camp where they give you some cash in exchange for some equity of the business and some mentoring along the way, with the goal of, all right, 3 months, let's make that 3 months feel like a year. Taught us a lot about fundraising and how to approach that, which definitely helped too. But yeah, we got into Techstars summer of 2016. Awesome experience. I would encourage anyone, if they ever get the opportunity, just say yes, figure the rest out. Yeah, it was awesome time.
As you started to scale this, what were some of the biggest, let's call them, features that you were getting demands for? Like, what about the platform did you say, oh gosh, this isn't there yet? And so what were some of the biggest ones that you can remember?
So when we first launched, if you're, like, let's say, looking at a calendar, if you clicked on a day, it would take over the full screen. You would, write or edit the workout, full screen. You guys early on were, very, very hot for being able to edit that day while still seeing everything else. So a lot of that feedback guided, the early evolutions of the product. And even to this day, the product, it doesn't have all of the bells and whistles and the cool things that were in my head originally that would be, really, really awesome, because the number one most important thing that people care about is simplicity and speed.
Mm-hmm.
What use is it, like if you could get volume and tonnage calculations on everything, but it 10x is the time it takes to create a workout, then what's the point? You might as well,
Yep.
you're going to be spending all day, writing too many writing programs, and it's just not gonna work. It's gonna take too long.
He could not wrap his head around that. Michael Van couldn't be a part of that if it took 10 times longer. Okay, what were some of the big learning experiences you and Robbie and the team had? Let's call it after Techstars, before selling the company, like big learning experiences. What are some that really pop up?
Oh, geez, so many. I would have started work on iOS and Android earlier, and probably chosen a technology where we could get both apps in the same code base. The reason we just chose to go kind of pure iOS at the start was, React Native wasn't as far along. It was still too risky of a bet. 90% of our users were iOS, so kind of made the decision, all right, well, let's focus there first. But mobile's tough. That, I would say if something takes you a week, a week to do for the web, it's probably going to take you 3 to 4 weeks if you're looking at kind of pure native mobile code. That was a big learning. I also think if I could go back and do anything differently, I wouldn't have started work on payments as early as we did. We started when we were a really, really small team, and would have waited till we were a little bigger, a little further along, I think, before biting off that chunk of work. Man, probably so many. Those are the two that come to mind on if I could go back and do anything differently.
How has your process shifted to learn what's working or refine the business or the product? I mean, do you run the company very differently today than you did a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of years ago when it was just me, or even me and Robbie, I would write a lot of code late at night, and I would QA it myself, basically do everything myself, talk to the customers, answer support tickets, write the code, deploy the code. And when you're really, really young and early, you can, and only have a couple users, you can build a feature, finish it at 2 a.m. Not the, most sustainable thing for long-term health, but and then you can deploy it then and there. You're like, oh yeah, it's fine. I have 10 users, and if it breaks, whatever. These days that doesn't work so much anymore. There's definitely more, better. The processes evolve as we grow. What worked for us at 2 people didn't work for us at 10 people, didn't work for us at 25 people, and isn't going to work for us, at 50 people.
Mm-hmm. Let's just take payments. If you would have started payments today, and all I'm saying is the TrueCoach has the ability for a coach to take payments. That's what we mean by payments. How long do you think that would take you today if you implemented it as one of your priority features?
Geez, I'm not sure. Estimation it's so hard with software. There's just so many unknowns, and I don't know if you've seen the graphic where it's like a guy trying to fit a huge log into his car, and it's clearly not going to fit, but the caption's like, this guy's a software engineer. You can tell by his awesome estimation skills. I don't think it would have taken as long, but exactly how long, I'm not sure. We have, I think, the feature flag flipped on for let's maybe 20-30% of our users now. And throughout Q2, we're going to work that number up to 100%. We want to make sure that, we don't crush the support team, as we're kind of dealing with the increased load and conversation volume that's happening now throughout COVID.
Gotcha. Okay. For people who don't know, you did sell the company. Can you kind of walk us through why you decided to sell, what your role is now, and kind of what TrueCoach looks like because of that?
Yeah. So late last year, around October, we were getting set to go out and raise our next round of funding. And we're maybe a week into the process. We're at about, I think maybe 50-60% committed. It's going really, really well, really fast. It's like, wow, we're gonna close this thing up before the end of the year. That's awesome. And then got an unsolicited email from somebody saying, hey, we're putting together, we have this thesis in the fitness software space. We're putting together, basically would love to talk. So had a few conversations, ended up leading to a letter of intent. And I was never expecting, I didn't expect kind of the first conversation to go anywhere. Got a letter of intent. We definitely weren't we weren't planning on selling the business for, we didn't really have any plans around it. We thought we were going to be in it for, we still are in it, but we thought we were going to be, growing it for a few more years before selling. Some of the factors that went into it, multiples and valuations at the time, like the market was just really, really hot, really frothy. It was a great time to sell a business because you get a great return. So that was a factor. Another factor was, so my mom's health was kind of, was on the decline, and this would have given me the opportunity to make sure that, she was taken care of with whatever time she had left, and she ended up passing about a month ago. But I was able to do some stuff kind of between. So that was another factor. Getting, paired up with other businesses that focus on other things will enable us to focus on what we do best. So, we're part of Mariana Tech, ZingFit, Tribe, all of us collectively owned by an Australian company, TSG, that's trying to break in the United States. But, the goal hopefully is, if they're really good at, doing these things that we don't do, then we don't have to worry about building that. We can just focus more on the coaching tools. Also, they had deep payments expertise and could really kind of help. And we're so early in the payment space that we feel they can really kind of help us guide the iteration of our kind of payments platform as it grows and evolves.
Is this collective? Will you guys integrate other companies' features into TrueCoach and vice versa, or is this going to become one platform, that's kind of under one name, and it has these separate sections, if you will?
Yeah, potentially. It's still so early, we're not really sure yet.
Okay.
I think integrating all 5 different companies' code bases that are different tech stacks into one platform, one code base that does everything, no matter what type of fitness business you own. I don't feel like that's realistic or practical. I think what will end up happening is if there's synergies, let's call it, between 2 businesses where an integration makes sense, then we go and build that integration.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay, so let's talk COVID for a little bit. And obviously, you guys are online. What have you seen COVID do in the coaching space? So not even the brick and mortar, but what has COVID done in the coaching space since it hit?
Yeah. So when I started the company 5 years ago, training people online was still looked at as pretty crazy. Like, well, why would, people just couldn't wrap their head around it. Like, what, you have a trainer, but you never see them in person. How's that work? Now, that's the only way to train people. Some gyms are opening back up this week, but training people online, the only way to train right now. We've seen our demand explode, right when we went into lockdown. We started seeing 3 to 4x number of new free trial signups per day. Payments revenues, falling dramatically at, brick and mortar businesses. I think even when we're kind of through this and, back to new normal, whatever that looks like, things aren't going to go back to the way they were. I think this is only going to force people to, so 40% of trainers and coaches pre-COVID were offering some form of online training. And I think this is going to force that lagging 60% to start taking it seriously. It's going to wake them up. If they want to build more successful, more resilient businesses, they're going to have to learn how to offer their services online. This is wave one right now. Things are going to calm down, but it's not going to go away for a while. There's going to be a second wave in the winter. I saw a report today. This might last 5 years and it might be here with us forever. So, if there's chances of more lockdowns or rolling lockdowns and waves of increased social distancing in the future, coaches are going to have to be ready, and they're going to have to be prepared for, the government says, hey, going back into lockdown, they're going to have to be able to pivot pretty quickly and offer their services online.
Prior to COVID, do you know approximately the percentage of your users that had a portion in person versus who were completely remote?
I think the majority were hybrid.
Okay.
Very, very few coaches are purely 100% online.
What do you suspect? And obviously your user base has dramatically increased, but what do you suspect percentage-wise a year down the road? Will it still predominantly be hybrid, or do you think that the remote only is going to be a lot higher?
I think remote only would definitely be a lot higher. I don't know if I can put an accurate percentage on it right now. It feels like a stab in the dark, but I definitely see that accelerating. People, maybe they start it now, and even when they can go back to normal, I can see a lot of them deciding it's just a better, more sustainable way for them to build and grow their business.
Is there a metric or that you guys somehow track that would say, if a coach answers these questions this way, they're a good fit to be a remote coach as compared to not? I don't have this data. I just have noticed so many coaches are not actually, they don't want to remote coach. They actually prefer to be in person. I've seen that probably, well, it's now flip side, right? Like some people don't want to be in person anymore, but
right.
Is there any way to track that or learn about that through TrueCoach?
So just to make sure I understand, is there a way to track what percentage of coaches prefer remote versus in person?
Or if there was some sort of action-based, like this coach is a better fit for remote versus in person, or vice versa?
Yeah, I think it comes down to how good of a communicator you can be online. The coaches that use more video, rely on video more, definitely, they seem to be more successful. They can keep clients around longer. They have more clients, and their clients are just more bought in. If they're focusing on just the sets and reps, the X's and O's, they're not going to be as successful as somebody that's a great communicator focusing on the person as a whole.
And when you say video, are you talking about taking a video through TrueCoach and sending it to the clients, or are you talking about going out and doing Zoom calls? Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I'll use Michael Bond as an example. So I've worked with Michael now for, I think, 3.5 years. and my wife's been with him for maybe 3-4 months now. And he is heavy, heavy, heavy on, starting a recording on his webcam and talking versus, typing his answer out. So I think the video it just helps with the human, we're humans at the end of the day through this, even if we're, getting our training online. The human connection, I think, is still the most important piece of coaching.
I noticed that as well, public facing too, where a couple of companies that I've followed their Instagram pages have sent me personalized video messages thanking me for following them. And I was just like, wow, that doesn't seem scalable, but still what an
Definitely stands
unbelievable
out.
experience. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you just get stickier. I think if we talk about a coach getting paid by a client hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a service, you better go the extra mile on some relationship building tactics like video.
For sure. Yeah, I think people could tell, and they could tell they're getting a cookie cutter template.
So you have been coached online for a lot of years, and you've built the coaching platform for coaching online. What are some of the most important factors that coaches should be doing with their clients to be successful? And I'm talking about longer retention, higher price point, more efficient online.
Yeah. This isn't news to probably anybody that follows OPEX, but definitely assessing their clients and personalizing and individualizing the program based on their assessment, what their goals are, what their lifestyle is. All that's it's huge. There's just so much cookie cutter stuff out there. If I want to, follow a template, I can go find a ton of those for free. Go on bodybuilding.com or T Nation or whatever and find a program to follow. But it's the human relationship and the personalization and the accountability you get from, having a coach. People are buying the relationship and the accountability.
Okay. I just want to get some of your broad thoughts here. So you mentioned that you read a study saying COVID, or I can't remember if you said study on this part, but possibly COVID's with us 5+ years. What do you see in the fitness industry because of COVID? What do you think the business side of this industry is going to look like in 2 weeks and then in 2 years?
I think the trend of people doing more of their workouts at home is here to stay. Things like Peloton, I can see a lot fewer people wanting to go in person to a spinning class, to be in a room, packed close together on bikes versus if they could just do it at home. I think we're going to see an increase to more video-based training, video on demand. Probably on demand will be more successful than streaming. I think streaming is going to be really hard. Live streaming would be really hard to pull off for a lot of gym owners and trainers that don't have good equipment, can't put time and money into good post-production, and those get smashed by the large tech companies that do that 100%. I think we'll see more of a trend towards, and maybe you guys are seeing this already with the data you're seeing, but more one-on-one personal training or individualized training, or the model that you guys are big on versus large group classes. I could see class sizes shrinking and gym owners needing to focus on, maybe their new North Star metric is average client value. They'll have to start tracking that a lot more closely and finding ways to get that up.
Yeah, we've seen a significant response on one-to-one and remote. So people are coming to us more for that. They're asking about it more than they have. They're downloading the content that has those terms in it. They're signing up for CCP because of it.
That was a question I was going to ask, if you guys are seeing a surge in new CCP signups.
Yeah, we have, so on the top of the funnel side, particularly in April, we saw 2 to 3x on new contacts in our system, which is a lot for us. Like that's a major outlier for us.
What do you think the primary driver on that is? Are people realizing that there's not going to be a class for them to go back to coach once this is all over? Or
I think it's multi-fronted in that our industry was shut down, and a lot of folks who didn't necessarily own gyms or who hadn't gone online yet had a lot of time on their hands, and they wanted to learn something they thought would be useful. So they then say, well, what is probably the most useful? And it's clearly online. Well, because we have, through Big Dogs and formerly OPEX and OPT remote coaching, we have a big amount of credibility in the remote coaching industry. We didn't build CCP for it to be the remote coaching education. But if you go through CCP, you know how to remote coach. You know what I mean? So it's like people knew us as having great remote coaches and the education that would support them in remote coaching, even though CCP isn't designed specifically for that. And I think also it's because we blitzed content.
Right.
Like we put out more content than we've ever put out, and we're still putting out a lot of content.
Yeah, we shifted all of ours as well.
Yeah, like you guys have been. I've had a couple conversations with Sam, and you guys opened the Facebook group, and a lot of blogs, a lot of content coming out. I think, I'm using
people just don't care about it, or they at the time they didn't care about anything else. Maybe now everybody's all burnt out on COVID. I know I am.
Oh, for sure. Oh, on that stuff. But we just did right before you and my conversation. We did our weekly webinar that anybody in the world can jump on, and we're still getting the same numbers on those webinars that we have for the last 8 weeks.
Awesome.
So I think I've been using this example often. Like Ryan Reynolds is a great marketer, and it's because he's informing and entertaining with this subtle undertone of like there's a product underneath it or something like that. I think that in fitness, there's been so much just throwing content, or throwing products at people and marketing so hard for products that the storytelling piece or the informational piece or honestly the entertaining piece of it was gone. And I think that the companies who are actually helping their clients and entertaining their clients have eyeballs. And I don't know, I mean, I know you guys think this way, at least in a certain capacity, but I'm a believer that the more eyeballs you have, the more business you do. But you have to keep those eyeballs through information and entertainment. And so, our target audience is entertained by education. So it's pretty interesting. So we're putting out as much education, entertainment as we possibly can. And then, like, I'm not worried if we put out too much content because it's like I might say a sentence, Casey, that somebody's like, oh my God, that's a game changer. And that sentence might also be in CCP, but without the rest of the context of CCP and the experience and walking through how to actually do all this stuff, you can't possibly understand what that education is really inclusive of. So I would much rather default on too much content than not enough.
There's more content out there than I could ever consume or watch, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's, to your point on Michael doing video for you and your wife, right? Like, that is a great experience. And so if I look at coaching education, or really education in general, and the digital portion of it's just going through the roof right now, it's actually now more premium to have an in-person or like a personalized feel to the education. So it's like if you're going scale, you got to go masterclass, $99, or $115 a year, or whatever the hell the price is. OPEX, like, we can't compete with that. So we're going high quality, high touch education because we know that works, but we're just doing it digitally. And then on the back side of it, that's the video cohort calls, the one-to-one touch points with our operations team, and then the in-person immersion. I think in-person stuff with the support of digital is going to be massively important going forward, because that's going to be value. The rest of it's just going to be YouTube videos.
What are you guys targeting for a date where you can start doing things in person again?
We actually don't know. I wish I could tell you that, but we hoped that it was going to be November, but some of the hotels, etc., that we kind of had potential of going to those spots, they don't know when they can do any of this. So I don't think I'll feel super comfortable bringing 60 people into our classroom. So I'm going to say probably towards the end of the year, and maybe I change my mind on that if something dramatically changes with how we understand who's going to get the virus. But until that happens, I don't want to be the person who creates that risk. And we're lucky enough to have a hell of a good education platform that can get by not having that in-person touch for a couple more months. So to me, it's just asymmetric downside risk versus upside potential. So we're just trying to over-communicate.
Middle 2021.
Yeah, it's very possible.
There's a vaccine.
Which is the fascinating thing to me right now is it's like if you're locking down for the next 3 months, let's take a California situation. What I'm trying to wrap my head around is, how are you not basically saying we're going to stay locked down? Like, if you're locking down for another 3 months, what's going to change now in 3 months? Like, there's no vaccine. There's none of that's going to be ready. And I'm not trying to say it's right or wrong. I'm just trying to say it's like, if you just said 3 more months, how do you not say another 3 months at the end of that? Like, what's going to outcome-based change?
Yeah, and then 6 months from now, we're going to be heading into flu season again.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Maybe a second wave even bigger than this first.
Yeah, and so I think it's like, what happens economically? Well, we'll try to keep injecting money in the system. You know what I mean? Like, and we'll just go as hard as we can.
Are you doing any personal travel this summer? You planning anything?
Depending on where we are, there's one place I would like to go, and I won't do it if there's big downside risk, but we do a once per year family reunion in Washington State. And I would love to get there if I could. My mom's, she's going through some tough cancer right now. So I can't do something and then be near her, if, you know what I mean? If that's going to be, like if going on a plane is going to be that bad. I would also I'd love to go to the CrossFit Games. We've got, Sam Smith and athletes. Like I'd love to go to that as well. Similar idea. Like, well, it's going to be a little bit more game time decision. How about you?
I'm dying for a surf trip.
Oh, I bet.
We'll see. We'll see if it happens. Right now, I'm planning on going somewhere when I feel like things are safe enough. Maybe July, August, September timeframe. I'm not sure. In my mind, I feel like getting there is probably, like, being on the plane is the riskiest part. I had to fly to Florida about a month ago for a family emergency, and full like hoodie on, mask, and I was fine. There was maybe 10 people on the plane each way. So the plane ride, that's the most worrying part. I feel like once I get to a beach, being in like my own room and like being in the water, super safe. Never going to catch it on the beach or in the water. Open air restaurants, like that feels pretty safe to me. I feel like that's one of the safest places you could be, like in a little surf bungalow on the beach somewhere. Just getting there is the worrying part.
Unless you're in California and there's 20 million people on one beach, like there were a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah. Ugh.
So let's figure out how we decide. Like, what'll be the deciding factors for you?
My mental sanity.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
I'm a pretty risk. I guess I have a high. I mean, I guess I have a high tolerance for risk. Otherwise I would have never have started this business and, not taken a paycheck for a year and a half and just gone all in. So I feel like I'm fairly tolerant of risk in the first place. I'm young, healthy, and I feel like if I got it, I'd be fine. I'm hearing some data that there's potential for long-term, permanent damage. So I want to learn a little bit more about that. All right, what populations is that affecting? Is it, just the people with serious pre-existing conditions that's affecting that are, getting hit by the permanent damage? Who's in that cohort? What percentage of people have permanent damage?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to learn a little bit more there as well.
Yeah. And I think that data is just going to keep coming out. I don't mean negative. I just mean there's just going to be troves of data that's coming out from different parts of the world. It's probably going to change a lot in the next 6 months, I would think. Anyways, so tell me kind of a last piece here. What are you most excited about other than the surf trip? Over the next kind of 1 to 3 years, is it the integrations that you're working on with different companies? What are you most excited about in work and then outside of work?
I'd say in work, I feel like online fitness is having its moment right now. And we're going to see a ton of innovation happening in the space over the next few years. And that's pretty exciting. Personally, so my wife and I are getting ready to start a family. So I'm excited to get that rolling.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah. We've been kicking the can down the road for a little bit. We're both 35 right now and have our own businesses, and it's been tough, but we're in a great spot now to get that started.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Casey, man, it's always a pleasure. I could ask you so many questions on what you think the Apples and the Amazons of the world are going to do in fitness. I'm super curious on what they're coming down the pipeline with, but
probably something that's super generalized and cookie cutter for the masses.
Probably.
I doubt it's going to be anything personalized or one-on-one.
Unless they somehow get your personal data into the watch, which, affects what videos it sends to you or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's still fairly cookie cutter in that capacity.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, people still want the human relationship. I want to work with, Michael Bond, not whatever some programmer whipped up at Apple.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Yeah.
It's so true. I agree with you. I think there's still such a big place for an in-person experience as well. I'm telling a lot of coaches too, even if you're fully remote, you do have to build something that could be face-to-face in some capacity.
I think every coach should start in person before going online.
I agree with that.
Hours under their belt, definitely. Yeah, I don't think in person's going away. Yeah. And there's going to be some percentage of people that are so sick of online and Zoom, just craving in-person experiences again after this.
Yeah, I think you're right. Oh gosh, we'll have to do another one of these calls and just brainstorm. But this was really fun, Casey. I appreciate you coming on, man. And hey, congratulations on the sale. And I'll preemptively say congratulations on starting a family and everything. And
appreciate it. Yeah, OPEX was a big part on that, big part of the journey. Y'all got in, when we were just nothing, and really were the initial kind of boost behind a lot of our growth. So wouldn't have happened, that was late 2015, and so that was a big step, and it goes all the way back to 2012.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that.
It's been a pretty wild ride.
Well, I can tell you that we wouldn't have been in if we didn't think that the platform was actually the right one for us. So I think that a lot of that's based on what you built, man. But we've enjoyed it.
Y'all took a big risk. If I look back on, just a lot of the stuff and the bugs and all that, and it was early. Y'all took a big risk for sure.
Yeah, well, it helped us, I think, because it made us more efficient, even though there were some early difficulties, and there's still some hiccups here and there, but it's definitely a big net positive, so awesome. It's been awesome, man. So thank you for this, and thank you for the product too.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
You got it. Well, actually, let me ask you this first. You know, if people want to reach out, how can they come find you?
TrueCoach.co, or if they want to reach out to me directly, Casey@TrueCoach.co.
Perfect, man. Thank you very much. We'll see
All
you guys
right.
next
Thanks,
time.
Jim. See ya.